Welcome.
Welcome to the Everything Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be reacting to the Neighbours 2025 finale, and I'm actually recording this episode on the day that the Neighbours 2025 finale was released, which was the 11th of December 2025. Obviously, it isn't that date when you're seeing this. I know that for certain, regardless of if you're listening or watching this episode. So without further ado, let's get on with it. But actually, before that, I'm just going to talk about my feelings about the finale. Well, the second one or third one, depending upon what you count as finales and whatever. But more specifically, actually, the reboot. So the 2023 to 2025 version of Neighbours, titled The New Chapter, and kind of is one of the big things and pillars that the podcast rested on. Is not so much anymore, but especially if you look at season 1 and season 2 before I went daily, it's if you look at how many of those episodes are Neighbours focused, because just for timing purposes, when the original Neighbours that ended in 2022 was cancelled, unfortunately, I didn't particularly cover it because it was ending, number one, and number two, it was months and weeks. But when it was announced to be coming back, I did cover it a lot. Probably to the point where I made you all sick of Neighbours, possibly. But it was the cast announcements and obviously originally when it first came back, I was doing week recaps of the episodes. And obviously they took on different forms, and obviously due to time commitments now I don't do them. But it's very. Yeah, it feels a little bit different because I remember the state of mind that I was in when it first got cancelled. It was, oh, that's sad, but the mindset I was in at the time was very much about things ending and sorts. So I was like, oh, it's sad, but it's maybe it was the right time or whatever was how I felt. I was kind of like, because I was actually away for the final episode of Neighbours in 2022, not this time obviously, because I'm recording it on the day and it would be very strange to record an episode whilst I'm away. But it was just very very different, and I was the headspace that I was in compared to now, and how much the podcast is focused on the new chapter, as Amazon decided to market it as. It just feels quite different, and obviously we're 3.5 years between the two finales. I was 18 when the 2022 finale came out. Obviously I'm 21 now, so my life has changed significantly within that time anyway. I've gone through a whole university degree in that time. It just feels quite different. But I've said this possibly in a previous episode, I can't quite remember, that I don't think that Neighbours is finished. Maybe Neighbours in its form at the moment, having 200 episodes a year, 50 weeks of 4 episodes a week, is probably a bit unattainable now, because it's filmed in Australia and all sorts of this legislation stuff, and where it's filmed doesn't particularly exist anymore. But I just before I recorded not this episode, but the 13th Doctor Adventures Ride or Die trailer episode, which has either been released or will release tomorrow. I was reading an article interview with Jason Hudson, who is and was the executive producer on Neighbours and has been for well over 10 years. And what he was saying was that basically very similar, that it probably isn't going to come back in that form as a soap 50 weeks a year and being on all year round, but that the idea so actually the reaction part of the finale, and more specifically that we had all the cast that came back, which if you haven't watched the episode, I'm going to spoil a few bits, but and how it ends is very ambiguous. It ends with, if you haven't been watching recently, that Ramsey Street might be being turned into a freeway, and Shane's Ramsey Hills and Paul's Robinson Towers, and they're coming up with them, and they were in the final episode, they were giving tours of it, and it was very ambiguous, and it was a cliffhanger ending is what it's being marketed as. But it is, just very, and I think that was the point, because I've saw people online, because it's been out a few hours now, and people on the internet do tend to voice these opinions, positive or negative, that they were saying, but we don't have a definitive answer, and that is kind of the point, so that if Netflix, for example, picked it up and wanted to take it a specific way, then it could go that way, rather than it being a very definitive ending like the 2022 one was, where it was, this is what happens, and it was, it's very different. They're not, back to Jason Hudson, he didn't want to kind of redo the 2022 finale and try and beat it. He wants to do something completely different, and with the studios being knocked down, or this everything there being getting rid of very soon after they filmed, because you've got to remember this was filmed in July. We're obviously seeing it in December, but it was very so the kind of the three ways that it's going to go, Jason suggested that maybe they'd do like shorter seasons and they'd flip between the two, so that way that is not, you're not paying the whole cast, I think was the idea behind it, and all sorts. And it's, do I think Neighbours is going to return in its 200 episode a year format? No. Do I think we've seen the end of that cast in its entirety? Also no. So we'll just wait and see, because Takaya Honda, who played David, and Matt Wilson, who played Aaron, are now doing a Neighbours podcast where they're interviewing basically their friends who have been on the show previously like they have, and then they kind of said, well, nothing shocks me now, because obviously the 2022 announcement and then the revival and reboot took everyone so by surprise that kind of nothing's out the realms of possibility. Now, I could very easily just be hoping for something that never happens, and if that's the case, then that's the case. But this is possibly the last episode of Neighbours where I talk about current episodes, but I do want to focus on it in a more retrospective way as well, and just what was I going to say? Just we'll just have to wait and see, basically. And if this is it, then we've had, what we've got to remember, and I think this is something that I had not really realised and focused on up until, because I've been watching loads of YouTube videos about Neighbours ending this week specifically, and the focus being on that we thought 3 years ago, well, just over 3 years ago, and that was it. We've got 460 brand new episodes out of that. We started and ended with weddings. We had a wedding in the middle. We've had loads, obviously, David's death spoilers, but all of this stuff that was never meant to have happened. So, if 40 years for a show is amazing, if you think about the only kind of one that I would compare it to would probably be like Doctor Who. And I think that could possibly be why I have the same attitude. Because that was, well, we thought a couple of months ago that was never going to come back, and it's coming back next year for a Christmas special. So I think similar to Doctor Who, Neighbours will always exist in some form. I hate to keep repeating myself, but I don't think it's going to be in the 200 episodes a year format. I really don't think that's the case. What I do think is the case, though, is that it will return in some form. Now, I've always had this thing that I may have mentioned this to Matt and Chuck, I think, at some point, that I've always thought that because of when it's ending, that on Christmas Day they'd announce something. They could announce something tomorrow, which would make this episode not pointless as such, because I'm still reacting to the finale, but it just is, that, which is possible. Like in these interviews, they said we've not heard anything and all sorts, but then the cast seemed quite hopeful, and I saw someone online saying they wouldn't have made the finale like this if they knew, and they might know something, and maybe tomorrow this is all like a very strange fever dream, and we wake up and it's Neighbours is returning in the 200 episode format, and it's returning in maybe not January, but returning maybe April next year. Like it is possible. It is very much possible that Neighbours will return in a format, but because the official press release, when it was announced all the way back in February, and Amazon have seemed to be a bit iffy. I've heard a few comments where they said we've not cancelled it because it's resting, is what they've said. Seem to suggest that the Amazon have decided that they don't want to commission any more episodes similar to Disney with Doctor 2, and they just need time to figure it out. And if that's the case, amazing. But we'll just have to wait and see. So I just it's a show that's been part of my life for 10 years, because I remember vividly watching from the 30th and basically religiously ever since, even due COVID and when it ended and when it came back and all sorts. So yeah, who knows, basically. Let me know what you thought about the Neighbours 2025 finale, as well as if you think the Neighbours will return in some form, in a spin-off or Ramsey Tower, or in any form, in the comments below. Without further ado, I will see you in a future episode of the podcast. See you then. Goodbye.